Shayna Gross here, registered dietitian for Flick, and today I'm coming to you from my home kitchen. I want to share with you a few basic techniques that I like to use for cooking vegetables. I like to use these techniques because they're very versatile, and once you kind of get them down pat, you can use them with a lot of different vegetables. They also really result in great taste and flavor as well. So the techniques I want to show you today are roasting, sauteing, and braising. So let's get started with roasting. So to start off, preheat your oven to 425 degrees and line a rimmed baking sheet with parchment paper. Or you can just cook it straight on the baking sheet too. That works as well. So today I am roasting some sweet potatoes here. So you'll start by cutting up the sweet potatoes. Be sure to really use the bear claw technique when cutting. This is the best way to protect those fingers. If you're not so comfortable yet with a knife and cutting, you can look into getting a cut glove. You can buy those on the internet, and they're fairly inexpensive. And that might be something to kind of give you peace of mind while you're beginning practicing with cutting up different things. So I have about 4 medium-sized sweet potatoes here, and so after I get those cut up, that's going to be about 3 to 4 cups of sweet potatoes. So when we're thinking about roasting is basically just cooking food in a pan in a hot oven. And so if you want to have a higher oven temp, that's going to promote more browning. Your lower oven temps are going to ensure even cooking and minimize moisture loss. So you can kind of adjust the temp as the temperature and time depending on what end product you're hoping for. So back to cutting up these sweet potatoes. The goal here is really to try to get these to be as close to about the same size as much as possible. And that's just going to help to ensure that everything kind of cooks evenly so that you don't have a tiny piece that gets scorched and then, a larger piece that's still not completely cooked. So just kind of take time to make sure that you're getting all of those cut up to about a similar size. So once you get them cut, throw them in a bowl, drizzle with some oil. I use some olive oil here, and then just putting a little bit of salt in. This is about 1/4 teaspoon of salt that I've added here, and a little just freshly cracked pepper. Putting it on there, and then just get in there with those hands and just toss it all together. Get that oil all over, coating everything, and just spread that salt and pepper, toss it all around. And so once you get them evenly coated and everything mixed up, you are going to take those sweet potatoes and throw them on a pan. Be sure that they're kind of spread out and everybody has enough space on the pan so that they can cook evenly. From there, you are going to throw these in the oven for about 20 minutes. And then pull them out, stir them, and then put them back in for another 15 or 20 minutes. And these times can be variable, so just check and test them out and see how they're doing. So for denser vegetables like sweet potatoes, the general rule of thumb is going to be that you're going to roast at about 425 degrees for anywhere between 30 minutes to an hour. And be sure to stir at least once. Higher moisture vegetables like asparagus, peppers, you're going to heat the oven to about 450 and roast for about 10 to 45 minutes, anywhere in between there. Other veggies to try this with are going to be things like asparagus, bell pepper, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, and potatoes. All right, so let's move on next to sautéing vegetables. So sautéing basically means just cooking your vegetables in a small amount of fat over moderately high heat with the goal of browning the vegetables. So here I've used olive oil, but you can use any other kind of neutral oil you might have on hand, like a avocado oil or canola oil would work great. So I am sautéing some squash and zucchini. So when we think of sautéing, you may think of, traditionally you may have seen chefs on TV really kind of jerking the pan back and forth and the vegetables are flying up in the air. And that is definitely one way to do it. But really just simply stirring with your spoon will pretty much accomplish the same thing to kind of result in browning the veggie and prevent scorching. So I'm seasoning here with just a bit of salt and pepper to taste. And so from there, you really just begin the sautéing or the jumping of the vegetables around on the pan. So you're going to kind of keep them moving until cooked through. Now, personally, I like for my squash and zucchini to be pretty mushy, so I have a tendency to kind of leave it in there for a while and really let it cook and get very, very nice and soft. That's just my preference. If you don't like yours like that, if you like it to be a bit more crisp, you can definitely stop sooner. I would say just kind of test the vegetable and see how you like it, and stop when you get to that point where it tastes just right to you. So some other vegetables to saute are going to be things like eggplant, mushrooms, spinach, green beans, and then of course, like I've done here, the yellow squash and zucchini work out great with this method as well. So finally, I want to show you how to braise greens. This is a great technique that really helps to preserve the earthy flavor, deep color, and great texture of hearty greens like collards or kale. So you're going to start by creating a flavor base. Here I heated up about 2 tablespoons of olive oil in a Dutch oven over medium heat. You're going to heat that up until nice and shimmering and then add a finely chopped onion. You want to stir your onion frequently until softened and beginning to brown, which that's going to take about 5 minutes or so. You'll want to really stay on that onion, be moving it around so it gets nice and coated in the oil and so that it doesn't burn. Next, you're going to continue building, adding some more flavors here, some more aromatics. I've added some minced garlic and some red pepper flakes. You'll cook those about a minute more, stirring them quite a bit until they're nice and giving you some nice aromatic smells. So starting with a flavor base full of aromatics like onion, garlic, and red pepper really helps to infuse the greens with lots of flavors so they don't taste bland. So then once you get that all mixed together, you're going to start adding your chopped and stemmed greens. So here I'm using just some kale, and you'll want to add it in 2 batches. So you'll start with your first batch and then stir until they begin to wilt, and then add your remaining greens. And so that's going to really help to ensure that your greens don't get stuck on the bottom and begin to scorch. So once you've got all of your greens added into the pot, you're going to pour in about 1 cup of chicken broth. And you'll also pour in 1 cup of water. And finally, add about 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Mix this all together. And then you'll want to cover your Dutch oven and reduce the heat to medium-low and then cook. You're going to stir occasionally until the greens are cooked. So this is going to take about 25 minutes for kale and about 35 to 45 minutes for collard greens. So you'll want to keep the pot covered. This is going to help to cook the greens quickly and evenly. So finally, you will remove the lid and increase that heat back to medium-high. And from there, you're going to want to continue to cook and stir those greens. You're going to stir occasionally until most of the liquid in there has evaporated. And this is going to take about 8 to 12 minutes. So this technique for cooking greens, you can really use this with any kind of seasonal green like collard greens, Swiss chard, mustard greens, turnip greens, and then of course here I used kale for this video. So this is again a really versatile technique that can be used with, just whatever seasonal green you may have available. So finally, once that is cooked, you're going to take off the heat and stir in about 1 to 2 teaspoons of lemon juice and about 1 tablespoon of olive oil. And then there you see I have the lemon juice going in, and then finally just a bit of olive oil. And then you can season with a bit more salt and pepper as needed and add additional lemon juice too as needed to taste. So always be sure that you are tasting whatever you're making. Be sure to taste it and make sure that it's palatable and that you like it before you serve it. So that's one big important key to keep in mind when it comes to cooking. So that is braising greens. So in closing, I want to say that when it comes to cooking and eating vegetables for that matter, the best choice or technique to use is the one that most appeals to you. And remember, when it comes to cooking, you don't have to be a chef or have gone to culinary school to enjoy cooking or eating good food. The key really is just to have fun, experiment, and learn. And in the words of the great Bob Ross, remember, there are no mistakes, just happy accidents. So get out there, try experimenting with some of these techniques, have fun, and I hope that this was helpful. Until next time, this is Shayna Gross, registered dietitian for Flick. Take care.